Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It's Friday, November 25th, and I'm Ryan Aselta. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving day filled with family, food, and of course, football. Now, Chris Canty will join us to talk NFL in a bit. Plus, we're going to get you ready for a big weekend in college football. But we begin on the hardwood, where once again, Kentucky looks like it could be the team to beat in college hoops. Now, recently, I had a chance to sit down with Wildcats coach John Calipari. Coach Cal has a new book out and stopped by to talk about some of his coaching and recruiting philosophies and how he's been unfairly blamed for the one-and-done athlete in college basketball. All right, Coach, so excited to have you here, and let's talk about the book. The book is called Success is the Only Option, The Art of Coaching Extreme Talent. How do you personally define success?
Well, success is becoming the best version of yourself, and that's on and off the court for us. The greatest thing about what we're doing at Kentucky right now, numbers, ego, minutes, that doesn't matter. Anthony Davis took the 4th most shots on his team. Carl took the 5th most shots. Devin Booker, he came off the bench for us. You're trying to become the best version of yourself. You're trying to share and sacrifice. You're trying to be wrong so others can be right. You're trying to become the ultimate teammate. In the process, be the best version of you. That's bringing happiness to you and then to our team.
You say in the book, success may be the only option, but as we know, success is not guaranteed, especially when it comes to winning and losing. You've experienced the pinnacle of your sport. You've also lost a couple championship games and the lows of that feeling. You've said in the past, successful people never lose. They either win or learn. How do you define failure, and is a season without a national championship a failure?
No, it isn't. Let me tell you what I would be disappointed in. If my team won a national title, I'd be happy. Happy for the program, happy for my staff, the school, the state. But if not one of those players was drafted that year, I'd be disappointed, because it's bigger than just winning. We're about these kids. My life became easier when I made it about everybody else. It just becomes easier. My job is to love on these kids, hold them accountable, keep it real, so that, and have their backs, so they can have each other's backs, so they can love each other. If they're worried about themselves, hard to be a good team player. It's hard to be a good teammate. If you're worried about everybody else and everyone else is worried about you, there's a comfort in that. There's a comfort level. We're trying to teach habits, joy. What brings joy to your life? Being about other people, doing things for other people, seeing that you're helping another person brings joy. It all comes back to, it isn't about you. And again, the recruiting process, if you want to score 30, if you want to be the face, if you want to be the only guy, you don't come to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. You said something very interesting there, that your life became better when it was about other people. Was there a point in your career that it was too much about you?
Oh, yeah. Early on, listen, my grandparents came through Ellis Island, didn't speak English. My parents, or my grandparents, my parents are high school educated. If I failed at my first job, there was no basement to go back to. So when I got that UMass job at age 29, I was so focused on success of the program, and for me personally, at the Hall of Fame, I apologized to those guys, my UMass guys. And 50 of them showed up for the induction. But I apologized. I knew how hard I was, and I was probably doing all the stuff for the wrong reasons. But as I got older, I get to Kentucky, 5 players are drafted in the first round: John Wall, Eric Bledsoe, Patrick Patterson, DeMarcus Cousins, Dan Yorton. You know what? I knew, wait a minute, something just changed.
Let's talk about the one and done. You've been accused of being the creator of the one and done ball player. A guy who comes to your program, heads right out the door 1 year later to the NBA. How do you respond to that? What do you say to those critics?
First of all, it's not my rule. I'd love to coach these kids 4 years. But the way the rule is right now, if I'm about them, you got to let them leave when it's their choice. Here's a great stat for you. I've had 20 leave after a year. You ready for this? Of the 20, 10 of them, half, scored more in the NBA than they did with us. Taught them to share, to be about their teammates. Yeah. The 3 guards I have now, I had to sit him down. You're taking the most shots. Don't take bad ones. The bad shots you're going to take have to go to your teammates. You're taking the most shots right now. So those are the things we're trying to teach, to bring them all together, to say, look, numbers, minutes, all that stuff is not, just be the best version of you. You don't have to compare yourself to that guy. Just be the best version of you, on and off the court. Create habits. You do that, all of a sudden you turn around, we win more, your teammates do more, you're in the green room, all the good stuff happens.
So much of what you do and what you write about really is management of
or
talent,
leadership,
personalities,
yeah.
A lot of juggling going on there, and it applies a lot to the business world, as you point out in the book. How many similarities are there when you talk about managing a group of 10, 12, 18, 19-year-old kids, and in the business world where you're managing extreme talent in the executive level?
And there's a bunch of them. Now, let me say this. Extreme talent flocks to each other. They really do. And if you create a great culture, it's more about their aspirations than the ego. There's red flags. There's certain guys that have extreme talent you do not want in your business.
And you talk about those guys that you stay away from when you're recruiting, right?
They're red flags that through the process of recruiting, we undersell and then over-deliver. And people say, well, how's he getting all these guys? What is he doing? The results. It's a culture they want to be a part of. They look at this and say, I don't have to score 20 and 15 every game, 25. I can come in and be the best version of myself. And if I'm that's going to be good enough. And all I have to work on is being my best, which brings joy, which brings happiness, which is success. Because my son's on the team. You're not going to believe this. He's never going to be De'Aaron Fox. He's never going to jump like Malik Monk. But you know what? He's becoming the best version of himself. And I am so proud. And I put him in games because I sleep with his mom. I mean, he gets in. And
he was in at the Garden.
And he got in at the Garden. That's the first Calipari to ever play in the Garden. And then he goes and makes 2 free throws the last game. So he's in the book, got fouled. And you know what? I'm just proud of his work ethic and what he's doing about being a great teammate. So this book is about, all right, I got a bunch of great people. Or how do I go after, not be afraid? I'm not afraid to be having 12 people that are all the top because you know what? They'll feed off each other. If you make it a culture that is a sharing about each other, that we all benefit, it's amazing what gets done when no one cares who gets the credit. But it only works if there's someone behind there saying, I got your back. I got this. Be about each other. We're going to take care of our people.
All right. You say you undersell when you recruit. It's tough to undersell the program that sells itself, so to speak, though, isn't it?
Well, here's what undersell means. If you're into drinking, smoking, chasing, clubbing, do not come here. If you want to shoot 30 balls a game, you're not coming with me. If you think you're scoring 30 points a game, scoring 30, forget about shooting, you're not coming with me. If you think you're not going to class, you're not taking care of business, you're going to run around and do whatever you want without structure, you're crazy. We have curfew. Oh, yeah, we have curfew. Well, I'm not coming there. I know. That's fine. So you undersell this, and it becomes about players come because they want to get better. They want to get better. They look at this and say, if I'm with other extremely talented players, I've said this, if you walk in a gym and you're the most talented guy, you're in the wrong gym. If you walk in the gym and you go, wow, look at all this talent, you're in the right gym. Because that's how you bring out your best. That's how you challenge yourself. That's how you learn. You're going to lose some. Right. You're going to get knocked down. Another guy's going to be better than you, and you say, how do I do this? I'll give you 2 examples. Tiger Woods changed golf. What did he do? He trained. Now, all of a sudden, they took buses and trucks that had workout equipment with the golfers. Who changed basketball? A guy named Kobe Bryant, who was working out 3 times a day. Would go at 4 in the morning, then he'd go at noon, then he'd come back at 6. All of a sudden, you better train in this game if you want to be one of the best ever. He changed it, and that's what we're trying to do too.
couple other things I want to get to. You're a coach, you're a leader, you're also an educator of men who come from many, many different backgrounds. You as a coach of these young men, with what's been going on in the country and the world, how did you handle Election Day with your group?
People that know me know I'm into politics. I'm into that leadership. And my hope is, and again, I'm just a basketball coach, that our president-elect will bring in a cabinet that is about win-win. Not we win, you lose. We won the election, now we win, you lose. That across party lines, all different genders and races, we're in a cabinet. People that are different than President-elect Trump. That, you ready for this? We'll challenge him. At the end of the day, his compass is the one we're going by. But why not have all that interaction, all that differences? And I hope that's what we do. At the end of the day, I've always been a gatherer. Just bring people together.
Have you had that dialogue with some of your players?
The dialogue, yeah. Well, the dialogue I've had with them is the Kaepernick stuff. And my point to them, if you believe in a cause, educate yourself first to make sure you really know what the cause is. Thoroughly know it. If you think you need to step in and make a difference, how do you make a difference? Without offending. Sometimes you may be offensive, but how do you make a difference? And are you ready for the ramifications? Now, if you really don't know the cause, don't get involved. If you do know the cause and you feel strongly that you want to make a difference, figure out how you can make it the most impact. Then are you ready for what comes on? You may be fired. You lose your family. You may lose. Then I go back to Muhammad Ali. When he stood up and did what he did, was hated, ridiculed. It was awful. Lost his job, his way of earning a living. But today, he's known as an icon, not even a boxer, right, because he stood by his morals. It was hard back then. So I don't want to tell them what to do, but I want them to tell them the process they need to go through.
Right. You talk so much about many of your former players in the book. Let me ask you about a couple of them. Who would you say the most physically gifted player you've ever had in one of your programs?
Well, Derrick Rose was ridiculous. Michael Kidd was the highest motor that I've coached. I mean, Anthony Davis was a guard, and he was 6'10" or 6'11". You know, John Wall was so fast. Oh, my gosh. And then I asked Eric Bledsoe, I said, how fast is John Wall? He said, oh, Coach, he's fast. Ooh. I said, he's faster than you? He said, no, he's not faster than me. So now I got De'Aaron Fox, who they say is faster. Malik Monk's a pretty good athlete, too. But I've been blessed. You know what I've been blessed with? The best players I've coached have always been really good guys. So I haven't had, maybe once or twice, my best player was a jerk. My best players have always been sharers, have been gatherers, good heart. It doesn't mean you're always doing the right thing, but you have a good heart. And my best players have been those guys.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, and your former players are probably going to be listening here. You have a chance to create a starting five out of the guys you've had come through UMass, Memphis, and Kentucky. What's that starting five look like?
That very hard, but let me tell you the grouping of who I'd have to pick from. The Lou Rowe, the Harper Williams. If I don't throw Tony Barbie in there from my Memphis or UMass days, he'd be crazy. Obviously, Marcus Camby. You know, the Padilla brothers were really good for us. You go to the Memphis stuff. You know, you have Tyreek and you have Derrick Rose. You even go to a Joey Dorsey, who was an unbelievable athlete. Chris Douglas Roberts. You know, we had some good ones there. And then you go to Kentucky, and you're talking Bledsoe, Wall, Patterson, who's doing well in Toronto, Cousins. You're going Brandon Knight. Come on now, Brandon. You have Enes Kanter, who's doing well in Oklahoma City. Well, wait a minute. What about Anthony? What about Michael? What about, you ready? You go to Nerlens Noel. What about Julius Randle, who's a double-double machine now? Then you're going to Devin Booker. What about him? I mean, Karl Towns, you're letting me do this, okay? Trey Lyles.
You're listing them off. You're reminding me of some of these guys.
All of a sudden, you're looking at this, Jamal Murray, how he's playing, and I probably left guys off. It's hard for me to tell you.
Yeah.
I could give you maybe 3 teams.
You got
to
a couple
say,
dream teams there,
Yeah,
Coach.
yeah,
Come
we-
on,
we'd
who are we
have some
kidding?
fun.
Coach, the book is called Success is the Only Option, The Art of Coaching Extreme Talent. You can catch that in bookstores
DeJuan
now.
Wagner. I forgot DeJuan
Don't leave
Wagner.
anyone out,
You
Coach.
can't.
You can catch the book online as well and in bookstores. Coach Cal, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks.
Enjoyed that.
Appreciate you.
Really a good read, good advice for coaches, businessmen, and executives. It's all right there in Coach Cal's book. And Coach Cal and the #1 ranked Wildcats are going to take on Tennessee Martin tonight in Lexington. Now, as far as the rest of the weekend sports scene, here's a look at what's on tap. This is SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. This weekend, we're highlighting rivalry week around college football. First, we head south to Doak Campbell Stadium, where Florida State will host the University of Florida. Seminoles head coach Jimbo Fisher knows that anything can happen in rivalry games, especially when emotions flare up against the Gators' third-ranked scoring defense.
What's different, there's so many more emotions, I think, that get into rivalry games. And I think that's where you got to be careful as a player and a coach. The emotions are important, but they don't always win games. That's where I think sometimes emotions can help you or hurt you. You have to really, I think it's very important to keep those in line with still performing in the game and doing the things you do. And I think that's what happens. That probably mean in rivalry games, but because people are going to lay it out, they're going to do everything they can do. There's no doubt.
The Seminoles have won 5 of their last 6 meetings with the Gators, including the last 3 in a row. Next, we head north to Columbus for the 113th playing of the game between Michigan and Ohio State. This will be the 11th time the Wolverines and Buckeyes will take the field as a top 5 matchup, with Ohio State holding a 6-3-1 advantage in those meetings. Ohio State coach Urban Meyer has been part of many rivalry games along the way and looks to continue his success against Michigan.
I appreciate rivalries, probably more than most, because I just have such a, I don't know, it's just the way I've always been. And it's when I was at Notre Dame, the USC Notre Dame rivalry, to the Florida, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Florida, Florida State, to BYU, Utah, to Bowling Green, Toledo. I think that came from Coach Hayes and Bo Schembechler. I just think that was the classiest. Both programs had a tremendous respect for each other. Both coaches did, and they played so damn hard. And so I just remember that. And so I have a great appreciation for rivalries.
The Buckeyes have won 11 of the last 12 meetings, including the 2010 season that was vacated per the NCAA. But this may be the biggest of the bunch in recent history. Last stop, we head to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. #1 Alabama looks to defend their home turf against 15th ranked Auburn in the 81st meeting of this storied rivalry. Crimson Tide linebacker Ryan Anderson is an Alabama native and knows just how important this game is to his school.
I mean, it's a lot different. I get the chance to play it because I feel obligated, to go out there and just do my best. Every play, just growing up. It was growing up. My cousin played here, so I was an Alabama fan when it came to the Alabama-Auburn game, and I just hate the kids running around with the little thumb up, man. I hated that.
Anderson and the second-ranked Bama defense will look to continue their dominance over Auburn. The Crimson Tide have won 6 of the last 8 head-to-head meetings. And that's what's in store for this weekend. Now, a little later, we'll shift focus to the NFL. Chris Canty and I will take a look at the best of the forthcoming free agent crop in the National Football League. But first, she may be small in stature, but wrestler Sasha Banks has been a gigantic part of the women's revolution in the WWE. The wrestling superstar recently stepped out of the ring and stopped by the SI Now studios for an unguarded moment.
I knew at the age of 10 that I wanted to be a WWE superstar. It was always my dream. The moment that I started watching WWE on TV, I was instantly hooked, and I knew that I wanted to be a wrestler. I think the biggest misconception is that, I don't know, I guess that people think it's fake when it's not. I get beat up every single week. I go home with bruises, with just always banged up, but it's something that I love so much that I always keep pushing, and it's what I love. And people think it's, I hate that. I hate that people think it's fake, but if they got in the ring and if they took a bump like we do every single week and legit travel how we travel every single week, they would so appreciate everything that we did. The biggest sacrifice I've had to make is barely seeing my family. I am home maybe 2 days a week, and you know, I only see my mom maybe twice a year. I only see my brother twice a year, and that is the hardest thing about being in the WWE. It's not getting to see your family, but knowing that they get to watch you on TV every single week, living your dream. So, okay. I think when I do come home, I do have to break away from my character because I can't be Sasha Banks 24/7, of course. But you know, I never really have the time to really sit back and think about everything I've done, because anytime I do, I get really emotional. I'm an emotional person, and you know, just knowing that I am living my dream and I am doing everything I said I wanted to do since I was 10, it gets butterflies in my stomach and I get kind of choked up inside, so I always just go, okay, move on, next thing, go do laundry. So I never really have time to really think about everything I've done. It's crazy. I should do it more often though. There would be no Sasha Banks if there wasn't Eddie Guerrero. He was truly my idol. I still look up to him to this day. Everything I do in the ring, I think, would Eddie do that? Would Eddie be proud of me? And if I got to meet him, I would just tell him thank you. He changed my life, and I would not be the person I am today if I never saw him wrestle that first time I did. How do I want the WWE Universe to remember me? I just want them to know that I put my heart out there. I gave them everything that I possibly could. I hope for future women that I made it an easier path for them to be living their dream and just chasing their dreams and never giving up and not letting people telling you you can't do it. Because when I first started, no one believed in me. Very few people believed in me, and I kept pushing through and I kept wanting to show them that, you know, I'm here to be the best. So I just want people to remember that I was the greatest women's wrestler of all time. That's the ultimate goal, and I remember I wrote that down in my journal when I was 10, so, you know, I would love to be a Hall of Famer, and I would love to just keep being in this company because it's what I love so much, and it's the only thing I know.
All right, Chris, it's Black Friday, so we're going to do a little shopping here. We're going to take a look at some of the biggest names in the upcoming NFL free agency class to see who you think is going to be some big-time good buys on the market in 2017.
Okay.
Let's start with the quarterback position, where quarterback Kirk Cousins is really making the most of this one-year deal in Washington. He's set to become a free agent. How good of a buy would Kirk Cousins be on the open market this year?
Well, he'd be a huge buy on the open market. I mean, you're looking at what he's done, his body of work this season, 6-3-1. He's guided his team to being competitive in the NFC East. 17 touchdowns to only 7 picks, over 3,000 yards. Really impressive win this past Sunday over the Green Bay Packers. Kirk Cousins has got this team rolling right now. Big challenge ahead of them Thanksgiving Day against the Dallas Cowboys, so we'll see how that matchup goes. But all in all, he's got this Washington Redskins team competitive. He's already got one NFC East title under his belt from last season. Let's see if he can do it again this year. But either way, he's going to get paid.
You think the Redskins get a little competition in the market for Cousins?
Yeah, I think so. There's a quarterback-starved league. A lot of teams that need a quarterback. The New York Jets are always looking for a quarterback. The Chicago Bears might be looking for a quarterback because of Jay Cutler underperforming, and now he's got the shoulder injury. So there are a lot of teams that are going to be in the market for a young quarterback, a franchise player. They think that they're a quarterback away with the rosters that are tooled up for. So it'll be interesting to see who comes in. There's always a dark horse in free agency. It'll be interesting who drives the price up on Kirk Cousins.
How about the running back position? Hasn't been a position of hot commodity over the last few years, but Le'Veon Bell could be a free agent. If you're a GM, are you spending a little money on Le'Veon Bell?
Absolutely, I would. I saw more of this guy in the AFC North than I really wanted to, being with the Baltimore Ravens the past 3 years. But Lev Bell is one of those special talents, and you see that in the running back marketplace. The guys at the top really get paid well. Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, just to name a couple. But those guys are really dynamic players. They're different makers. They change the complexion of the offense. And so when you look at what Lev Bell does for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he opens up opportunities for everybody else. He has an elite ability to be able to accelerate to the hole and through the hole. He's got elite vision as well. He's patient enough to be able to allow his blockers to get in position and set those guys up so he can maximize the opportunities on the ground game. He's also a dynamic receiver. You can split him out. He's a mismatch with linebackers. So a lot of different things that Lev Bell can do. He can change an offense. He's an explosive player, and everybody would want to have a running back like that.
Let me ask you about 2 wide receivers here. I want to know who's a good buy and who maybe you would leave on the rack.
Okay.
Alshon Jeffrey and Terrell Pryor.
I'm going to leave Alshon Jeffrey on the rack, and here's why I'll say that. Just some injury concerns over the past couple of years. He had the PED suspension of late. I just, right now, it's not a lot going on. I don't see it trending up for Alshon Jeffrey, and it's not all his fault. There's been inconsistent play at the quarterback position in Chicago the past couple of years. But Alshon, he came into the league, he made a lot of noise, but he's kind of tailed off. Terrell Pryor, I think the arrow is pointed up for him. 6'5", 230-pound receiver, great hands. He's new to the position, so he's still learning. So there's still a lot of potential for growth and improvement. I like the direction that he's going. I think he's looking to cash in on his ability on the open market. Don't see him necessarily staying in Cleveland.
All right, Chris, you obviously spent your career on the defensive side of the ball. If you're going shopping here, you're looking for a bargain from a defensive player, or are you going to spend a little bucks here?
Yeah, I'm going to spend some money on the defensive side of the ball, and I've got to admit, I'm partial to those guys. Defense wins championships, as they say. But everybody spends a lot of money on these pass rushers, guys that can get after the quarterback. But I want to spend some money on the guys that complement them, the run stuffers. Those pass rushers aren't very good when you got 2nd and 3 and 3rd and 1. They're not allowed to be able to tee off. They can't make offenses one-dimensional. Those run stuffers have got to make sure that they keep those offenses off schedule. So I got to go with my guy, former teammate Brandon Williams, been an elite run defender the past couple of years in the National Football League. He makes a difference in terms of being able to clog up the middle, being able to make sure that teams don't get the easy yards on the ground, force teams to throw the football, and that's when guys like Terrell Suggs and Elvis Dumervil and Zadarius Smith can get after the quarterback. He sets all of those guys up so they can do their thing, so I think that teams need to set him up with a big contract in free agency.
All right, it's the end of the year, good time of year to look back on some previous purchases, maybe ones that you might regret if you're a general
buyer's
manager.
remorse?
Yeah,
Little
who
buyer's
has
remorse?
buyer's remorse? Looking back at last year's free agent class and the signings, who was the biggest free agent bust so far this season?
I've got to go with Brock Osweiler. And I know that his team is first place in the AFC South, but just the way he's been playing, not really taking advantage of all the weapons that he has down in Houston. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. He's got Will Fuller. He's got Lamar Miller in the backfield. C.J. Fedorowicz as his safety valve in the tight end. But yet he's not being able to facilitate this offense. They should be a lot more dynamic, a lot more explosive than they are. A lot of misses in the passing game, a lot of turnovers in the passing game, a lot of indecision in terms of how he's operating that offense. I really don't like the fit right now. I think there's a lot to be desired in terms of the contract that they gave him versus the production on the field.
All right, also, everyone loves a sale, right? I mean, you look back and say, I can't believe I got this suit for that price. Well, who's outperformed their deal? Who do you like that's been well worth the money and beyond?
Well, I don't know about the sale price, but I've got to go with my former teammate, Kalichi Osemele. He's playing for the Oakland Raiders, and I know a lot of love goes to Derek Carr and Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree and those guys. But really, it's the offensive line that sets the tone for the Oakland Raiders, probably the second best offensive line in the National Football League behind the Dallas Cowboys. But he's a road grader type of guy, but he's also good enough, he's versatile enough to be able to be that dancing bear in pass protection. He can play guard and tackle. He can play along the entire offensive line. So that gives that group a lot of versatility in terms of what they can do. Derek Carr playing at an MVP level, a big part of that is keeping the pocket clean so he can throw the ball, and that's what KO does for that Oakland Raiders team.
One thing we know going forward, it's going to be a lot of money to be spent shopping this coming offseason.
Estimated $166 million cap in 2017. It's a big number.
Not bad. Thanks, Chris.
My opinion on this has changed almost weekly over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But let's each pick an MVP. I'll keep you in the dark. You give me yours first.
All right, I'll say Derek Carr. The defense has had some ups and downs, but the offense and Derek Carr has been what's kept them in the game. Look, by the end of the year, will I probably say Brady? I think that's a good likelihood, but he's only played 4 games. They were 3-1 without him, and I don't think the Raiders would be 7-2 without Derek Carr.
I cannot pick Tom Brady after the NFL is 9 weeks old, and he's played 4 weeks. I mean, would you pick an MVP in baseball who played half the games? I don't think so. But you're right. I mean, he plays 12 games, and then you never know. I'm going to pick Matthew Stafford. As I wrote in Monday Morning Quarterback this week, the amazing thing about Matthew Stafford is that the Detroit Lions could legitimately be 0-9 right now, and yet they're a half game out of first place in the NFC North. They have been behind in each of their 5 victories in the last 90 seconds of the fourth quarter. So that is what I would call value. A guy who does a really good job right at the end of the fourth quarter to help your team win.
And that's going to do it for this Friday episode of SI Now. We'll see you back here on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, stick with SI.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great weekend.